Science is not only a disciple of reason, but also one of romance and passion. Stephen Hawking. It's time for science, and it is time to talk about student-centered learning and successful implementation. Our first guests are science specialists Lynn Gutzwiller and Rachael Coleman from Jordan School District in Utah about how they best support teachers and how they were able to use ELA and technology funds to help fund their science curriculum purchase. Then we talk with international classroom teacher Kendra Villalpando about keeping students engaged and her love of science, bringing the spirit of curiosity and exploration to her classroom, and how to get students excited about writing with their journals and lab reports. It's time for science, and it is time to talk to Lynn Gutzwiller and Rachael Coleman from the Jordan School District in the great state of Utah, because we are going to talk about the importance of hands-on learning, how to integrate language arts into science education, and as well as the advantages of having a district-wide curriculum. So, Lynn and Rachael, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you first, let's start off with the big picture. Let's talk a little bit about you guys. So, Lynn, what do you do in the district, and what's your role in all of this?
So I'm one of two, Rachael's the other one, science specialists. We work primarily with the K through 6th grade. We spill a little bit into middle school, but mostly the primary grades, elementary grades. And we support teachers in science instruction. So everything from modeling lessons to supporting curriculum to developing resources to finding resources. That's our job.
That's excellent. I always love it when districts have specifically science people. That's awesome. So Rachael, what about you? What's your background?
So I'm a counterpart to Lynn. So I support teachers in teaching wonderful science instruction. We support the curriculum, build resources or shortcuts that teachers are looking for or might need. We adjust the curriculum based off of our state standards, and we do a lot of professional development.
What are your backgrounds? You guys both classroom teachers? How'd you get into this?
Yeah, I started in the classroom in middle school science and was there for about 15 years, and then jumped down to 6th grade, which in Jordan School District is in our elementary school, and taught all the subject in 6th grade for a couple years, and then went on to be a science specialist in Jordan.
And my training background in education is more in the ELA framework. So I taught junior high ELA for a long time. Then I went into technology coaching and did that for a number of years, and then that sort of slid into science and STEM, and here I am. So probably my specialty on our team of two is more of the technology side of things.
Excellent. I love it. You guys have all the bases covered. This is perfect. So much fun. So we love to talk about the importance of hands-on science, because that's what's great. What separates science from a lot of the other subjects is that the kids are learning as they're hands-on. Let's talk a little bit about, I'd like to get your feelings in general on hands-on science. Lynn, why do you think that's so important?
Oh, it is so important because number one, it gets students engaged. There's nothing better than being able to do something with your hands while your brain is thinking about what you're doing. And I mean, at least hopefully your brain's thinking about what you're doing. And I think that's really true for students, that there's so much sitting during the school day and I don't want to say passive learning, but not as many opportunities for them to be engaging their hands and their brain at the same time, and in a really productive way that benefits learning. And so I think science just lends itself so well to that. So paramount. I think it's paramount.
Rachael?
Yeah. So when we're looking at those science and engineering practices like analyzing data, it's far easier for students to analyze data when they ran the experiment where they collected that piece of data. So they watched that plant grow, or they watched the chemical reaction, or they watched the temperature change, and doing that with your own hands and watching that data change is so critical to being able to understand the data and analyze it correctly. And I think, like what Lynn said, as far as engagement, like when we have this overarching question, this focus question that we're trying to answer, and students are looking at the actual supplies, and you ask them, how can we use these supplies to answer this question? And it's not like I just have to visualize all these things that might be happen to be in front of me or might be sitting on the computer screen, but I actually have them and I can touch them and I can see them, see how they're going to interact. I can see how big the cup is or what the pipette looks like or what these measuring devices look like. It's critical to be able to answer that question well.
We are sponsored by School Specialty and FOSS, and we try not to make this too much of a podcast about that, but you guys have chosen FOSS as your curriculum. Was that one of the reasons you did, and what is it about the FOSS curriculum and generally, specifically, that you liked to bring into the district?
So when we ran our RFP and we're looking at good curriculum, the best curriculum to support our three-dimensional science, we were looking for a program that didn't just take, I'm going to use with the way old science was taught, and slide in a few science and engineering practices and cross-cutting concepts. We were looking for a curriculum that was based off of science and engineering practices and the cross-cutting concepts and use the content in order to teach those skills. And far and above, we saw that FOSS was what we were looking for to be able to do that. Instead of science, engineering practices, and cross-cutting concepts being slid in at the end, really that was the paramount piece in using the content to teach those pieces. And we knew going into it that we didn't have enough funds in our science coffers to be able to purchase any program. And so we were working with English Language Arts and actually also our technology departments and seeing how can we can we find a program that would integrate those pieces? So, and they were willing to support the purchase of a program that would integrate our English Language Arts and some technology. And so we were able to use some of the funds that came from English Language Arts and technology in order to purchase FOSS.
I love that. I don't know much about the inner workings of how that works, but this is the first time I've heard of that, and I love it because this comes up a lot in the podcast about ELA and using English as a second language to teach kids and all that kind of a thing. And so it's wonderful that the English department was involved. I think teachers can maybe use that. Hey, a lot of light bulbs just went off. Hey, I know where to get some money now. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Lynn, can you weigh in on that at all about using the ELA aspect of FOSS?
Oh yeah. I think one of the big strengths of FOSS are the informational texts and helping students learn to read informational texts that are engaging and robust and on grade level, rigorous, all those things. As we looked at the curriculum, they really meet those criteria really well. And so that part was probably stronger. I shouldn't say probably. It was stronger than any other curriculum we saw. That literacy integration was really good. And the way FOSS even introduces the reading standards right along with the article is great. So you can easily as a teacher say, wow, I'm going to do my science investigation. We're going to look at all the science parts of it, and then we're going to slide into the ELA article that really fits very well with what we just did in science. It hits our informational text standards. It hits some of our reading strategies and standards. We're going to hit our speaking and listening standards. And so a lot of that integration just really flows very naturally in the FOSS curriculum.
Have any of the language arts or teachers weighed in on this? Have they noticed a difference? Have they talk about how kids are writing about science and all that kind of thing?
It's an interesting, what's the word I want to use?
Dynamic?
Yeah, interesting dynamic in that they have curriculum as well. And so we're looking at how do we balance that, right? With the ELA curriculum they've adopted as well as the FOSS literacy integration. And I think we're still at the point of trying to find a good balance of those things. Some of that comes down to what are teachers more interested in and what are they more comfortable using. So some of them will take the FOSS articles and use those really well within their ELA curriculum, and others maybe feel a little less confident about that. So that's part of where our job comes in, right? We can come and give weigh in on that for individual teachers and maybe help them see, hey, this is a place you could use some FOSS readings. Here's a place where you could have students write about what they're doing in science. And so just kind of paving those ways for teachers is part of our role.
And one of our goals in English language arts is to raise students' ability to read higher lexiles texts and or more difficult text. And what we found is that when students are using, like running the investigation and they're building vocabulary as they're doing those hands-on with whether we're talking about chemical reactions or what sounds they might be hearing or particular vernacular to that content area, they're able to access harder texts or higher lexile texts in order and that was a great benefit to our ELA standards that students could read at a higher text because they had some good background experience, some background knowledge in order to access those.
And that's a shift for teachers to think that I want to do the hands-on piece and introduce the new vocabulary while I'm teaching, as opposed to front-loading all the vocabulary, doing the definitions, and then expecting students to understand what it means. And so we found that teaching vocabulary in context, kind of like Rachael said, is so great. And that helps even your ELL students who may struggle with just vocabulary in general. They can get it when they can understand it with some hands-on, minds-on, work using those words. So.
And that was a transition for our teachers that we found, even though the curriculum has it lined out where you do the experiment and then you oftentimes have readings, we saw a handful of teachers that were flipping those because they were just so used to having that reading for students to gain some knowledge before running the hands-on and then really teaching them, like, why would we want to flip those and the value of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think you learn, even as adults, we learn in context. We learn new things, and it's much better to learn those things in context. What kind of advantages are there to having a district-wide curriculum? So, I mean, is it just sort of standardized? How many schools is it in, that kind of thing? And what are the advantages of that? Why would people want that?
Well, probably the one of the best advantages is that there are 2 of us and 42 elementary schools. So the fact that we can kind of point to one curriculum primarily and be able to really support that, I feel like it gives us a little bit of leverage to really do a good job in supporting that curriculum. When we develop something or we add a tool or we add a resource or we're giving teachers maybe a shortcut or a pathway they need or whatever it is, that they're like, wow, this, FOSS doesn't quite have this. Could you build this or develop this or add to this? Now we've just done it and we've replicated it 42 places instead of just, well, this teacher needs this one thing because they're using this particular tool. So it really makes our time very efficient in terms of teacher support.
Rachael?
And we know exactly what students are getting in the classroom. And we
should be getting.
Thank you. We know exactly what students should be getting in the classroom. And when we looked around at all the curriculums, like FOSS was really the best. And so we know that students should be getting the best in the classroom. And one thing that we love about being able to implement across every single school is that teachers who are unsure about teaching science or unsure about the content or the pedagogy shifts in teaching science, they are able to adhere really tightly to that scripted lesson plan. And then teachers who have a wider background in science and feel more comfortable teaching science, they may really just pull out that focus question and some of those targeted scaffolded questions and the hands-on, and then they kind of make it their own. So it's great learning for those who need it, and it's a great support for those teachers who already have the learning are just looking for some great lesson plans.
That's something that comes up a lot because a lot of elementary school teachers don't necessarily have a science background, and so it can be very intimidating, I think, to I can teach math, I can teach English, but science seems weird, and so it's great that we can help out with people. What kind of professional development do you guys do? Do you have an annual thing where the teachers all come and learn, or do you do seminars? How important is professional development in all of this?
Yeah, so I actually was just going to segue to that, but very important, first of all, because FOSS is, we always say, FOSS is great because it's so complete, and it's hard because it's so complete. And so we have done a lot of professional development. So generally we'll offer a strong set of professional development in the fall, specifically geared at teachers who are new to the district or new to the curriculum, or maybe new to different grade levels. And then throughout the year, we'll offer different cohorts. And then in the spring, we'll offer another really robust set of professional development as teachers are kind of going into summer and leading into next year. So that's kind of our pattern. But one of the things that we're starting to do, and this is piggybacks on a benefit of having a district-wide curriculum, is that now we're starting to get some collaboration going where teachers from different schools, but in similar grade levels, can start to work together a little bit. They can start to build off each other. And since we are, know the different schools, we can pull a really strong teacher who might be using the FOSS curriculum really well and put them in a cohort with teachers who may be struggling a bit, and now be able to build this, idea of, can we move forward together, and can I help this stronger teacher really have some impact on the ones that are struggling? And so that's kind of where we're tinkering a little bit this year. But that's kind of our professional development. It's ongoing. That's probably the best answer.
Rachel, how important is professional development in your eyes?
Ooh, super important. I feel like we learned a lot of what not to do, to be honest. When we rolled out FOSS, we rolled it out we adopted it in the spring of 2020. Is that right? When we were out for COVID, and we finally had the final okay to purchase it, and we're able to secure all the funds to purchase it. And so the summer of 2020, we had just lots of materials arriving at lots of different schools with no knowledge of what those were, except for an email, and what to do with those and what the expectation was. And then the scramble of fall of 2020 when FOSS was really meant to be lots of hands-on and collaborative work, and we had to be 6 feet apart, and we couldn't touch the same supplies. And Lynn and I did a yeoman's amount of work that fall, trying to give a stopgap for that. So we had a really soft start. I'm not sure that's the way we would have rolled it out in hindsight. We may have just
there were a few things going on,
There were a few things outside of our control for sure. And so there's been it's been a soft start for lots of people, and there's something good about that, because like Lynn said, there's 2 of us and about 1,500 teachers, is that right, that we support? And so instead of taking one fell swoop of 1,500 teachers and trying to support them all, it's really been in these chunks of people as they've been like, maybe I'll figure out what these black boxes are doing in our workroom. And so there's goods and bads to that. So doing professional development and really being able to tie that to what that might look like on our state assessments, and how that could change the outlook for some teachers on their state's assessments, and preparing students. We tested in 4th grade. That's when we start testing in science. And so really what does it look like to prepare those lower grade levels for those critical thinking skills? It's a different maybe outlook from what they may have been used to doing for science. So,
if they start young with our K through 2, then they're already on the way, which is awesome. So I was wondering, I'd love to ask people about, do you personally have a favorite module or a favorite experiment, or maybe a moment that you've witnessed a kid have that great aha moment that because of what you're doing? I was wondering if you had anything you could say about that. Rachel?
Okay, my favorite kid is 3rd grade motion and matter. I love that. I love the ramps. I love the kids, when we go in and teach some model lessons, the kids are disappointed when it's recess. Like, they're like, oh, because science is always in the afternoon. Yeah, they're all like, oh, do we have to go out for recess? And inside I'm like, oh, that's the way I want every student to feel about science. So, okay, I'm going to tell you a story, but you may need to cut this out. So we were doing a model lesson with, was it Motion and Matter? Motion and Matter. And it's the first one in the kit where they're doing the magnet and the paper clip, and the paper clip looks like it's levitating because it's trying to pull towards the magnet, and you're sliding the cup away and it's still levitating. And we were actually doing this I'm just going to clarify, not in the Jordan School District. We were in another school district offering a little support PD for them, and a 3rd grade student, as she sees the paperclip levitating, was not anticipating this at all, and slams her hands down on the desk and says, "No effing way," except she uses the real word. And she was just shocked that that's what would happen. And none of the students blinked. Like this must be common language for this particular student, because nobody was like, oh.
They were too
and
They just
focused
kept
on
on
the
rolling.
magnet. Yeah.
yes, yeah. And I mean, that's kind of an extreme view of an aha moment for a kid of just like, that's not what they would have expected. And then figuring
That's a
out the
serious
science
aha
behind,
moment. Yeah.
yes. And then figuring out the science for why that works and that could be replicated. Yeah.
That's awesome. Lynn, how about you?
Okay, I have two. Personally, I love Pebble Sand and Silk, second grade. It is fun to teach, and I am always amazed, no matter what second grade class I go into, to do a model lesson with that, is that I can take 3 rocks and have those kids really engaged and excited about rocks for 30 minutes, and they're looking at all the different things about the rocks, and so I love the way the lesson's set up. I love the way that it's outlined where they rub them together, they put them in water, they do all the things, and anyway, it's just a really good one with very, very simple supplies. So I love that. The other one is I really like mixtures and solutions. There's some great, just like the chemical interactions are really fun to see and do with students, and there's some good investigations in there. So those are my favorite. My least favorite is planetary science. The moon is there. There's stars. We're down here. Go get them.
That's it. That's all we got.
That's all we got. That's all I got. She's got more, but.
What I love about the rock one is you just know that most of those kids for the rest of their lives are going to look at rocks and say, hey, you know this thing with the rock? And they're going to, I mean, it's just because kids love to be outdoors and they love to be with rocks. And now they learn 6 things about rocks. And I just love that.
Yeah.
It's going to stay with them forever. So, well, Lynn, Rachael from the Jordan School District in Utah, thank you so much for being here. We're really happy that you are happy with FOSS, but also how important that is, the hands-on learning and the English language part of it. Thank you for your insights. This has been great.
Oh, thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
It's time for science, and it is time to talk to Kendra Villalpando, who is a teacher with international experience, has been all over the world teaching kids. It's really, really awesome to talk about science teaching with Kendra, and so we're going to get into that right now. So Kendra, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you talk a little bit about your background? Let's find out, where your education is, how you got started in teaching, and other things about your wonderful international experience.
Awesome. Okay, so I am a military spouse that has gotten the opportunity to travel all over the world. In the meantime, I've been raising 2 wonderful children. I actually am a newer teacher within the last 5 years, so I love teaching science. I'm an upper elementary teacher of all subjects, but science is my all-time favorite. I have a master's in curriculum instruction and a bachelor's degree in elementary education. I really like teaching early childhood as well, so that's an awesome space for me. As an educator, I believe that science is best learned through active investigation. I spent my life growing up in the mountains of Montana. I spent the weekends fishing, hiking, and observing nature with my family. These experiences shaped my understanding of the natural world and taught me that science is not just a subject, it's rather a way of thinking, questioning, and discovering.
That's awesome.
So I love to bring that spirit of curiosity and exploration to my classroom.
We talk about that all the time, about getting kids outdoors. It's wonderful that you grew up that way. That's fantastic. I always strive to do that with my own kids, get them outside, go to the museums, do that kind of thing. That's wonderful. So in your general approach to teaching science, what is it? We love to talk about the hands-on nature of science and of FOSS, of course, but in general, what do you feel about the advantages of using hands-on science for students?
Yeah, for sure. And of course, I'm proud to use the FOSS curriculum in my classroom. It definitely aligns with my belief that students learn best when they're engaged in hands-on, inquiry-based learning. FOSS's emphasis and my own personal emphasis on the first-hand investigation of scientific reasoning and that 3-dimensional learning really does mirror my own approach to teaching. Students love science in my room, and every day we all are thrilled for science. It's at the end of the day, and it just makes us all have something to look forward to. In addition to that awesome hands-on space, I love to integrate science across all the content areas. I have a true belief that building that rich background knowledge with scientific concepts and phenomena helps students really make a lot of connections in everything that we do.
Yeah, we love the idea that science ties in with other subjects, learning English or social studies or history, anything like that. Science sort of is an overarching thing and ties that stuff together.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I absolutely agree. I try really hard to integrate science across all of my content areas. We like to bring one amazing thing, for example, that we did this year is we wrote a lot of lab reports, which it's a little different. It's a little bit of an add-on to the FOSS curriculum and to the science that we did. But in our space, we really needed an emphasis on writing, and our students are most engaged in the science classroom. So we integrated so much writing this year between their science notebooks, but then we even took it to a formal space. So we bridged that informal writing in their science notebooks to a formal space, and my students were so proud of their work. I mean, we had them hanging in the hallways. They got printed. They went home, like everything. The students were just so thrilled to show their lab report, and I'm talking multiple pages in the middle of fourth grade. And that to me is something to be very proud of. My students were so excited to write about their procedures, and they went back and they edited. The writing was absolutely amazing this year.
That's so great, because
yeah.
I'm sure they want to feel like real scientists. They're doing real science.
Yeah,
this is what a real scientist does, so they have to live up to it. I think that's so wonderful. Do you have any specific ways that you bring science into the other disciplines, like you just said, the lab work? Is there other kind of things that you can maybe share for other teachers who are listening for ways to bring science in? Because sometimes over here, science is sort of pushed to the side to math and reading scores and things like that, and we're always looking for ways for teachers to engage science in a way that sort of they can work into their curriculum. Do you have any like fun things you do or tips or tricks?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing in bringing science into the other areas is just understanding that students having background information on scientific concepts will help them so much in every area. We forget that when we see these end-of-year assessments and all these big tests that we take, more than likely there's going to be a scientific passage on that test. So if students have learned all year about fossils and, deposition and weathering, of course, when they see a passage that they have background knowledge on, they're going to be more successful. So I think we need to ensure that we take the time to recognize that building vocabulary with our students just in the vocabulary space helps them in every single unit. I mean, we go back to even in ELA, we talk about the Dust Bowl. I mean, what is the Dust Bowl? It's erosion. We do that in our hands-on investigations. We physically show the process of erosion. Then when they go in and they read about all of the history of the Midwest, they see, oh, that's erosion. Of course, you already know what it is. They're going to be more successful because they've had that exposure and that background knowledge to be able to make those connections to the real world events that they see and read about. Building the vocabulary to me is like the number one priority. But on the other side is also using that time to be, let students be creative. For example, mealworms. Could you write a story about the mealworm? Who is this person? Are they a character? Where are they going? Where do they live? Let them have the mealworms in front of them. Write about it. Draw them. Write a poem. Could it be a haiku? Like, who is that guy? And I think just giving ourselves the permission to be creative in that space, but intentional when we're being creative. To me, making school a space where students are able to be creative and use those critical thinking skills to be successful is such an important space. So
I love that. I think that's the first time I've thought about it from that perspective. I grew up as an artist, and if I had a science teacher or anybody to say, let's write a book about this mealworm, I would have been over the moon. It'd been great. And I think it's great because it's thinking outside the box. I mean, it's not necessarily science per se as we're writing a story about the mealworm, but you're still bringing science in and letting them be creative. I love that. That's
right.
So wonderful. I give you kudos just for that. Thank you very much. In a part I might not be able to use, but I'm personally interested. You have international teaching experience and you're from the United States. Do you feel what kind of differences there are perhaps maybe in teaching kids over there in England? Is there a different approach to science? Are they more welcoming to it? Anything like that?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, like we have a lot in our space. We teach American kids, so our kids mostly are coming from the States. So our curriculum matches what they would kind of see in the States, except for I think that we have a little bit more access to some things. So, yeah, I think that we are, from my experience as a teacher, I'm able to teach more science here, if that makes sense. When in the States, it was more like, oh, you do math for 120 minutes and you do ELA for 200 minutes, and then you're lucky if you get science in. And we were kind of told to like do things like throw a science passage in your ELA block, as opposed to doing a hands-on investigation. I'll never forget when I walked into our school and we had FOSS, and I took my kid out. And I was just so excited to see all of the stuff that we were able to do. I was thrilled to be able to teach science to my students in the way that we were able to in this space. And I think that we just have a little bit more of an understanding that science builds that background knowledge for kids in all of their spaces. So we all know that as educators, you see those passages and you're like, oh, that's about a volcano. Like if a kid knew what a volcano was, maybe they would be more successful. We forget that, like, right. Oh yeah, main character or main idea characters. Like, no, how about erosion and deposition and fossils and evolution?
Right. It all goes together.
Yes.
Well-rounded children. What a concept. I like that. So, is there anything you wanted to add or wanted to get into this conversation?
Yeah, I just think that like one of my main goals as an educator, one reason why I love FOSS, I do have a student population where I have several students with exceptionalities where accessing content is sometimes a little bit harder for them. But I do have to say that when I teach with FOSS, every student in my room is engaged and they all have access to the content. And I think that every student deserves the opportunity to see themselves as a scientist. I know that every student in my room is capable of asking questions, testing their ideas, and then making the sense of the world around them. And that's the one thing I love about FOSS is that it does truly engage all learners through that hands-on experience. It's not just a worksheet. It's your science notebook, your tattered journal that you've carried around all year, and you're touching the rocks, you're making a fossil, you're observing isopods and mealworms. It's just such an amazing space to have access for all learners, and I think that that's like one thing that is my favorite part about FOSS.
Wow, I could have said that any better. The advertising people are going to love you. That's so good.
Oh, goodness.
Well, no, because that's one of my favorite things is that we hear time and time again where teachers will say that when they're teaching science and when they're teaching FOSS, they have like no behavior problems.
No.
Everybody's engaged. Everybody's in a group or they're working together because they're fascinated by whatever's going on. And that alone, you would think teachers would just glom onto just to keep control of the classroom and to have kids really engaged. That's amazing. Yeah. I love that. Can you talk a little bit about the class notebook you said, walking around, how important that is to helping out with ELA and writing and all that kind of stuff? Oh. Just the fact that they have to do this in their journals. Yes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Okay, so this is like one of my favorite things to talk about. My students in this room would be so thrilled to tell you about their science notebook. If you walked in and you said, show me your favorite thing about this room, those science notebooks are coming out. I allow my students a lot of time to sketch, to take notes, to write observations, write what they wonder, what they notice. All of our content is in our science notebook. we do use a lot of the FOSS provided materials where we're using the notebook entries, the charts that they use. But in addition to that, we do a lot of scientific observations where the students are drawing what they see. I do have a room full of budding artists, and I do feel an obligation to give them the opportunity to draw and also write about what they see in science. And plus that helps me on the other side, propping in that ELA in there. But my students love their science notebooks. In fact, we have filled up entire composition notebooks this year. Several of my students are on notebook number 2, which makes me really proud as their teacher. We do everything in them. Open your notebook to your next available page. And the students know exactly what they need. They bring their little tattered journal to their spaces, and they're working, whether they're making observations, whether they're answering a focus question. And I get 10 times better work in a science notebook than I would on anything else that I ask my students to do. They love them. They're so proud of their work in there, and they're committed to being scientists when they have those out. It's their little tool.
That is awesome. I love to think that there's going to be a certain percentage, probably a higher percentage in your case, of kids who will continue to do this, who will keep journals, who will keep sketchbooks and all that kind of stuff, because I think that's so important. I love that. Kendra, this has been really wonderful to talk to you. I'm really proud to have met you, and I think you're doing great work, and I think your kids are very, very lucky to have you.
Thank you so much.
It's Time for Science is produced, recorded, and edited by David Lipman and Tom Racine, and is sponsored by School Specialty and FOSS, the Full Option Science System, at the Lawrence Hall of Science, UC Berkeley. Be sure to check out FOSS on Facebook and Instagram.